Hi, I'm Jeff from New York. Please like and subscribe.
Young Billionaire, Season 2, Episode 3, Jeff is waiting for Lalaine. Elsa gaped in shock. She hadn't believed that Jeff would actually kill anyone, even though he was much more important than people realized. Killing people was an entirely different matter. She had no idea how powerful his family was. Killing two people was nothing to the Florento family. It was like simply squashing a couple of bugs. Elsa's heart thundered as she stared at Austin's body. His vacant eyes looked right back at her. The rumble of thunder grew stronger, and the sound of rain grew even louder. Jeff turned and pointed the gun at Elsa. Lightning flashed, highlighting his face and making him appear especially menacing. She couldn't stop shaking.
Jeff, what are you going to do?
She asked. She had already seen that he knew how to shoot.
How could this have happened to Lalaine, unless you were involved?
He asked, his finger tightening on the trigger.
You can't kill me.
She shouted.
I'm your girlfriend. You can't touch me, no matter what I've done. We spent the night in bed together, and now you're treating me like this. What kind of man are you?
Ha!
One of the men slapped her hard.
Don't speak to Mr. Florento like that. Not unless you have a death wish.
How dare you hit me?
She screamed.
I am Jeff's woman and I'm going to marry him.
She stood up, took the hospital report from her bag and threw it at Jeff.
Take a good look at this. I have internal damage which is likely to get infected. And you did this to me? The doctor also said that there's a high chance of pregnancy. I might give you a son, and you're treating me like this? Don't you have a conscience?
She walked toward him.
Didn't you say you were going to kill me? Well, come on then. Kill me. What else do I have to say? Just shoot me and let me die.
What are you doing?
Kenneth demanded, stopping her.
Get back on your knees.
He wouldn't allow Elsa to be so disrespectful to Jeff.
I never want to see you again.
Jeff told her, lowering the gun.
Get lost.
He had been with her, and now he wouldn't be able to bring himself to kill her.
Mr. Florento.
Kenneth said, a little confused. Even if Jeff had slept with Elsa, it didn't make any difference. He had 100 ways to make sure Elsa aborted any child and keep her mouth shut.
Get her out of here before I change my mind.
Jeff shouted at Elsa. She was terrified that he would go crazy and kill her, so she turned around and ran. But it seemed like he had listened to her, so she would come back and speak to him again after she had given him enough time to calm down. 5 minutes later, Kenneth received a call from one of his men.
Mr. Florento, we haven't found any trace of Miss West in any hospital in New York.
Kenneth reported.
Check again.
Jeff said, his face ravaged with grief.
And also check hospitals outside the city. I need you to dig deep and find Lalaine for me.
A man with a gloomy expression walked in and informed them that Austin had taken Lalaine to the KF hotel, and Kenneth told him to investigate further. Mr. Florento, Mr. Stokes, we've checked the surveillance footage outside the KF hotel. The man reported. It appears that Miss West was taken away in a car. We're currently searching the city for it. In the meantime, this is the surveillance video. He held out his phone and showed Jeff the footage in question. On the screen, Lalaine fell from the 4th floor and hit her head. Then a car stopped next to her, and a man and a woman got out of it. They observed Lalaine for a few seconds before lifting her into the car and driving away. Although the couple's faces were not particularly clear in the video, it should still be possible to identify them. Jeff ordered his men to find them as soon as possible and bring Lalaine back to him. He sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard and waited for news. He watched as a river of blood flowed from the corpses of Austin and his wife. It was still raining, and he was completely drenched, but he refused to move. Lalaine's fate was still unknown, and he didn't care about anything else. Mr. Florento, you should get out of the rain, Kyle said, worriedly. You'll get ill if you stay out here. Kyle, Kenneth and 2 men remained outside with Jeff.
No.
Jeff said.
Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Stokes, you can go back inside, but I'm going to wait here for Lalaine.
Rain ran down his face, but his expression was firm. He was confident that Lalaine would return safely. But Kyle wanted to persuade Jeff to move inside, but Kenneth stopped him, pulling Kyle away.
Mr. Florento won't listen.
Kenneth told him.
He doesn't care about anything except Miss West's return.
But with our resources it shouldn't take us long to find those two people and bring Miss West back, Kyle said. They remained standing next to Jeff in the courtyard with the cold rain falling around them. 1 hour passed, then 2 hours, then 5 hours, then an entire night. To Kenneth's surprise, they still hadn't discovered Lalaine whereabouts by 5 o'clock the next morning. Even more shockingly, he hadn't managed to find the couple who had taken her away. With Kenneth's resources, he should have been able to track them down as soon as they stepped foot in any hotel, restaurant, or supermarket in New York, but neither of them had shown up in any of these places, and he hadn't been able to find any trace of them within the past 10 hours. He didn't dare tell Jeff. No, it would only make him even more worried about Lalaine. The rain still hadn't stopped.
Mr. Stokes, is there any news yet?
Jeff asked, turning his head toward Kenneth. His face and lips were pale, his voice shook, and his body trembled.
I'm sorry, Mr. Florento.
Kenneth said, feeling guilty.
My men are useless.
He broke off when Jeff's eyes rolled back in his head and he fell to the ground, landing in a puddle.
Mr. Florento?
Kenneth exclaimed as he and Kyle rushed to his side. They called for a doctor, who told them that Jeff had a fever from staying out in the cold rain for so long. It took 5 days for Jeff to get better. During those 5 days, Kenneth actively searched for traces of the couple who had taken Lalaine. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he searched New York and the surrounding areas, he didn't find any clues. It was as if they had just vanished into thin air along with Lalaine. During those 5 days of being sick in bed, Jeff had looked through Lalaine's diary every day, and he had realized that he couldn't afford to sink into a depression. He had to pull himself together if he had any hope of finding her. Jeff understood that Kenneth's failure to find Lalaine within 24 hours meant that she might have been taken elsewhere, and the search for her might become an extended one. Every day he listened to Kenneth's progress report, and then directed his men to keep searching. As soon as they found any clues about Lalaine, they were to report back to him. Kenneth gradually expanded the scope of his search to cover the entire East Coast. Jeff felt that they were getting closer and closer to finding Lalaine. He had been staying at the Secret Garden guest house for long enough, and now he was growing bored and wanted to return to Peston University. After thanking Kenneth for his assistance, Jeff dragged himself outside and got on a bus back to the university. He walked over to Ramsey Lake, where he had the most beautiful memories of Lalaine. He slowly approached the lake and was stunned to see Lalaine standing there, looking the same when they had first met. She looked like she was about to jump into the water.
No, Lalaine, no.
He shouted, rushing toward her at the sound of his voice. She turned her head in surprise as he rushed toward her, knocking her to the ground before she could react.
Lalaine, what are you doing? Where have you been these past few days?
He asked, rolling on the lawn with her.
Jeff.
Lalaine said softly.
You?
Jeff watched in disbelief, as her face seemed to change in front of his eyes as he realized that this wasn't Lalaine. It was Elisa. He quickly let her go and stood up.
Where have you been?
Elisa asked, slowly getting to her feet. Her face was slightly flushed. She had made a point of asking around about Jeff and Lalaine, and she had learned about some of their histories. To tempt Jeff, she had even started to wear the same kind of clothes as Lalaine. She knew that Ramsey Lake was a meaningful place for them, so she had gone there to look around.
I'm sorry.
Jeff apologized. He sat beside the lake, looking out at the rippling water and remembered everything that had happened there.
Where's Lalaine?
Elisa asked, walking over to him.
His behavior was a little strange. Why was he so flustered?
She's been kidnapped.
He said in a flat voice. He had to find her quickly and bring her back. He coughed a few times and then sneezed.
Are you sick?
Elsa asked, her expression serious. His face was very pale, and it was obvious that he was ill.
Come on, I'll help you inside. It's too windy out here, and you don't want your health to get any worse.
She started to help him up, but he shook her off.
I'm fine.
Elisa was used to his behavior. She simply sighed and stood quietly beside him, keeping him company.